You're great. Even if you suck sometimes, we all suck sometimes. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of You Up to My App. We are back with another solo episode, and today we are talking about apologies, we're talking about forgiveness, and we're talking about closure. And oh my gosh, there's so much to unpack here. So, why are we talking about these things? In my last solo episode, I spoke a whole lot about evolving and change and growth and figuring it out. But in order to do all that, you kind of got to fuck up a lot. And sometimes that means hurting other people or hurting yourself or getting hurt and a whole lot of saying sorry. I mean, if you're somebody who's, figuring out who you are or just, like I would say, figuring it out, whatever, you're going to mess up. So I've said a whole lot of sorries. Some of them not received well, some of them completely embraced, and we're going to talk about it. So, yeah, what is an apology? An apology is more than just I'm sorry. I feel like to apologize to someone means that you reflected on whatever the heck it was that you did, and you're not saying, oh, because I think social media has kind of trained us to be like, you know what, you just apologize for the way that somebody feels because no matter what, you made them feel that way and you can't change that. But I think a lot of people have gotten to the point where it's like, oh, sorry you feel that way, and they call it a day, and they're not sorry about anything. They just that's kind of like a cop-out at this point, is that it doesn't even feel sincere anymore. I feel like a true apology is really understanding what you did, and as cheesy and girly as it sounds, understand where she came from or where he came from, because this isn't just a relationship thing. This is for everything, for your friends, your family, anywhere you mess up. And I feel like to truly apologize to someone is really to like sit with yourself and almost like, I don't want to say it like this, but like punish yourself enough to understand like, yo, you hurt this person. These are the parts of their life that you've impacted. And just kind of feel for them, like truly, and by yourself. Like don't talk to your friends about it. Like literally just sit with it by yourself. I mean, at least that works for me for the times that I've apologized, where it's like my apologies are so sincere because I put myself through the ringer trying to like, I don't know, just trying to like work out how bad of a person I am. And something that's actually gotten me through that is bad people don't ask themselves if they're bad people. So there's a little nugget for you. Uh, but yeah, like I screwed up terribly. If you watch, any podcasts coming up or whatever, I noticed myself even recording, I say a lot like, oh, I was a shitty person. I was a terrible person. I was a bad person, all that good stuff. Because I was. And it was just stupid high school stuff, screwing up when I was 17. That might be a story time for another solo episode, but that's a whole lot of stuff to talk about. And I had to find a way to talk about it in a respectful manner. But I messed up big time, lost one of my best friends. And that is something where I learned a whole lot about saying sorry. I learned a whole lot about guilt. Learned a whole lot about apologizing in general because I screwed up doing all those things. I had a whole lot of guilt. I kept a secret for over a year. She found out and I didn't say a sorry immediately. I was in I had such a gut-wrenching feeling for months, maybe even years actually. And I kind of stood with that and I just told myself, you know what? All the pain that you're feeling is more than enough karma. And I don't know if I'll ever get to the point where I can say sorry or if she ever wants to listen to me kind of thing. But then the day finally came where like we spoke and I apologized. And there's a lot of things that I learned from that where like sometimes like the person forgave you or they understood you as much as they could. And that's kind of it. That's all you're going to get. Like when you screw up really bad, there is no reconciliation. You don't say sorry to just kind of start anew. You just say sorry to understand like, listen, like I messed up and I screwed up real freaking bad. And I think that that's a big thing with being the wrongdoer. It's just kind of owning up to it, understanding it, and just kind of taking whatever that comes with, whether it be, losing a friend or just dealing with the shitty consequences. It is what it is. So yeah, I gave my apologies and all that good stuff long after everything popped off, happened, whatever you want to call it. I realized that was mistake number one. You're supposed to apologize immediately. I mean, at least, immediately, as in within at least a month, bare minimum. It took me like a year or 2 years to apologize just because I think it was shame. I think shame was a big thing. Um, and that's okay. That is very okay because me having shame also meant that I didn't like who I was or I didn't really like, approve of my actions in hindsight, obviously. And that is a-okay because when you're 17, you are figuring yourself out and you know nothing about yourself and you're learning it at the same rate everybody else is. And that's it. So yeah, there's that. When it comes to apologies, you gotta do them in a timely manner because that plays a big role. And I know that now. Okay. Next thing about apologies. Like I said, sometimes a person doesn't even want to hear it. Sometimes a person does not care to hear your apology. And that's okay because I think that when grow some balls and finally apologize to someone, that's for you. That is 100% for you. They don't have to accept it. But you know that you said it. And if they don't want to accept it and they don't want to move forward, that's fine. You did your part. But on the flip side, if someone apologizes to you, you're just as much in the right to be like, you know what? Like, that's cool you said that. But I'm not even ready for this. I don't even think that we're at the reconciliation phase. And that's just as okay because that's your decision. If you don't want to forgive, that's fine. And another thing is you can also forgive without telling the person. Sometimes you have to forgive someone and not let them know because some people, they hear your forgiveness or, you let them know and you make them aware of it. And they think that that means everything is A-okay and everything's fine. And everything's fine and dandy. You guys are good. You're friends again. Boyfriend and girlfriend again. Everything's good. And it's like, no, actually, I forgave you before myself. And nothing has to come out of this. I can just forgive you. So sometimes the other person doesn't even need to know you forgave them. You just forgive for yourself. And then, best case scenario, two responsible people are involved in a friendship, a relationship, a sisterhood, whatever you want to call it. And one person messes up. They go, damn, I messed up. And then, they apologize. And the other person goes, thank you for apologizing. Thank you for respecting me. Don't do that shit again. And then they're happily ever after. That's fine and dandy and that's lovely. But that's not what happens when you're young and you don't know how life works, how friendships works, how your own brain works, how other people's brains works. And another thing that I want to point out too is that you don't always have to be sorry. You don't. Like, you can't let people guilt you into thinking that you're a terrible person or that you're a bad person or that you're supposed to say you're sorry because it's the right thing to do. No. I can say all these things about be sorry, which is great when it's right. But there are so many other situations where if you're not sorry, stand on it because a fake sorry is worse than not saying sorry, I think. Like if you're in a situation with someone and they're like, oh, I'm sorry, and they do the same thing again, they're not sorry. In my situation, or at least situations that I've been in where I haven't said sorry, we just never speak again because some people can't handle the fact that I'm not gonna lie and say I'm sorry for something I don't feel, don't mean, or didn't do. So there's the little the harsher side of that. And then there are the serial apologizers. This is another kind of person. It's the person, kind of like what I just mentioned, but it's the person who keeps making the same mistakes, keeps going through reflection periods, and keeps coming back to tell you, damn, I was really messed up to you. And for whatever reason, this is a real life example. And for whatever reason, you're like, you know what? You spent all that time thinking and you finally got the sense in your brain to apologize to me. And you're like, you know what? You must have really thought this through. Thank you for apologizing. I believe your apology. We can be civil. And then they do it all over again. And you go through this over and over and over a time span of sometimes years. And you keep believing that they're actually sorry. And they're not. Well, maybe not that they're not, but they have no type of self-control, whether it be with their emotions, their actions, whatever, to really follow through with fixing themselves. Or maybe they don't think they need to be fixed. And that's just okay. That's just as okay, because we're all just figuring it out. But don't figure it out with me, because I'm over it. That's something I learned recently. I am so over so many things. I don't put up with a lot because I don't have time to waste, and I don't need to keep going through the same situations, patterns, any of that. So I'm proud of myself for that. And okay, let's talk about forgiveness. I was talking to someone the other day, and I don't have the greatest relationship with my grandmother. That might also be another podcast episode, but not this one. And all of that to say is just like, not the greatest relationship, just a very rocky situation. And he asked me, like, can you ever forgive her? And I went through this weird thing where I was just like, no. But not because I can't forgive her. But I didn't mean that I can't forgive her. I just meant like there's nothing to forgive if she didn't know what she did. Like, I feel like that's just more of a thing of just that was a happening. That was just something that happened. That is the way that she is. There's nothing to forgive. Like, I'm not sorry for who I am. And if she's not, I don't know. This is a weird thing in my brain. Because, I mean, just to give you a little more context, it's just the way that she acts, the way that she is, type of person she is not great, at least not to me. And yeah, so that's that. So I went through this thing where I was just like, I don't know what there is to forgive. And it felt weird because nobody's ever asked me that. And I know people talk about like generational traumas and blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, I don't know. I feel like for me, forgiveness and apologizing are really like interlinked, and I can't forgive anybody who never felt the guilt or never felt the shame or never second thought any of their actions. Like, you don't deserve forgiveness, but at the same time, I think if I feel like you didn't do it intentionally, I'm not hurt enough by what you're doing. It's more of like, that's just the way things have been. That's just the way that they are. So be it. I'm going to live my life the way that I do, and you do the way that you do. And every time our paths cross, it's kind of unfortunate, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, that's that. And I don't know. That's always been like a tough situation for me, because there's also the argument of like, oh, always forgive your family. They're always going to be there. But something that I've learned, and, my mom can probably agree with and stuff, is that you're going to find a lot of people in your life who are going to stick it out for you and be there for you. And, like, I don't know, just show that they're there way more than some of your blood relatives. And that's just the way it is. So another situation having to do with forgiveness that I want to touch on is forgiving yourself. And this goes back to what I was talking about before with the whole high school nonsense that I was in a while ago. Because I'm not going to lie. Like, I am someone, I don't know, I think a lot, I reflect a lot, all that good stuff. And I've always thought about how silly this sounds, but it's not silly at all. I don't think. Because, like I said, when I was in high school, I screwed up in a way that I pretty much lost my best friend. And we were friends for like forever, typical female friendship type of thing where it's like, oh my God, we're like sisters. And it was the first time I feel like I grieved someone's absence. And, Like I haven't really had major deaths in my life that I was old enough to like process, understand, and feel. So this was like the biggest one. And what I can say is that as petty and dramatic and nonsensical that whole drama was, it was the one thing that shaped like everything about who I am now. I'm a great friend. I'm a good person. I can say that confidently. I'm one of the most dependable people that any of my friends know. I am full of so much love, light, and joy and truth because I was a full-on liar before all the time. I was lying to everybody. And the reason that I'm not, any of the bad things that I was is because I was. And I learned how terrible that can be and where that can get you. And I'm just like, I don't want to be her anymore. So, like I said, stupid high school drama. And if I were to tell anybody, like in short, what happened, like in like 2 sentences and be like, and that shaped who I was today, they'd be like, Erica, what? That makes no sense. But like I said, we'll go into that on another episode because that is a story and a half. All this happened when I was 17. I'm 24 now. And what I can say is that not a single, I don't want to say not a single day goes by because we're getting better. But I want to say not a single week goes by where something doesn't come up that either reminds me of the old friendship that I had or how terrible of a person I was. Because one thing I will say, being someone who is just mean for no reason or someone who's, betrayed probably the closest people to you, being all that bad stuff has just kind of, where was I going with this? Has taught me like who not to be. But, that's where I was going with this. It's also taught me not taught me. Did it teach me? Yeah, it's taught me how to like point that person out in the crowd. Like I can 100% point out who that backstabbing friend is, who the jealous friend is, all that, because I've been the jealous friend, I've been the backstabbing friend, I've been the one that's like playing you in your face. And I don't know, people hear me speak like that and they're like, oh, so like clearly you don't care about what happened if you could speak about it. I'm like, no, I can speak about it so freely because I'm not that. Like, I'm so detached from that version of myself that I talk about her like she's another person because it's just like, she was fucked up. And that's okay because she doesn't exist anymore. And I don't know, that's just how I see it. So that thought process and that way that my brain works and stuff all came, with that thought process came forgiving myself because like I said, I'm not stupid. I know that it was 100% me. I'm not trying to be on some like, I don't know who that is. No, that was just me at 17. And I don't know, forgiving myself, like it took years, like for that specifically, took years. And I'm like, maybe I'm still going through it because like I said, like I still think about it a lot. I mean, because I think about it a lot doesn't mean that I don't forgive myself. It's just that it's impacted me that much. But at the same time, I feel like that's also what makes my apologies complete because it's like you can't, like no one can tell me I haven't thought about that situation as often as I have because I know I have. I've replayed so many moments in my head, so many apologies or so many what ifs or so many things have happened where I'm just like, wow, like what would my life be like if we were still friends and stuff like that. So I feel like someone who's like is truly sorry and all that stuff, like those are the emotions that they go through. And because I've gone through that, I also feel like I can recognize when someone is, apologizing and apologizing at their truest self, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. I feel like because of how terrible of a person I've been, because of the terrible people I've known, because of, the bad things that have happened, not bad things, but, uncomfortable experiences I've had with friends. I know who I want to be, I know who I am, and I know who I'm not. And one thing I can say is that after being such a unlikable person, I feel like I can always see, I don't want to say the good in people, but I can always believe that people can change because I did. I'd be a complete hypocrite if I knew somebody from my past, didn't speak to them for years and years and years. They come back into my life and I'm like, you know what? You're exactly who you were when you were 16. That'd be foolish because if someone said that to me, I would just be like, are you for real right now? Like, nearly a decade has passed and you have the nerve to insult me and tell me that I'm the same person I was when I knew nothing, when no one knew anything. Be for real. So that's that. For as long as you're that hypocritical, it means that you haven't changed. For as long as you believe that no one can change, for as long as you believe that anyone who's ever done any bad in their life is evil and stays evil and will forever be evil, says more about you than it does whoever you're talking about. So I think that's a little food for thought there. So yeah, so there's that. Closure. So one take that I have is that closure isn't always necessary. And hear me out, because I think people don't understand what closure is, even though it's in the damn word. Closure, a closing, an ending, you know, the end. And I know like there's all these silly memes about like relationships where it's like, oh, you know, when you go to his house to get closure, you know, and that's all funny and stupid and silly. But in all seriousness, I feel like closure is exactly like you're closing that situation, that part of your life, all of that chapter's ending. And I feel like you can only get true closure when both the wrongdoer and I don't want to call him the victim, but the one who's hurt, you know, when they've both reached a point, you know, long after the situation happened and they can stand on whatever their stance is. And I don't think that the word isn't stubborn. Maybe, I don't know what the word is, but like, you know, in Instagram terms, it's standing on business. But you got to be sure in how you feel, because you can only get closure if two people express how they feel in that moment, explain everything from the past, and say, okay, that's how I felt. This is how I feel. This is me now. That was me then. Let's move on. And that's it. That's it. I feel like that's what closure is supposed to be. I don't think that anyone can get closure in the heat of the moment, that you can go through something this week that's like huge, like a big blowout. Like I'm not talking about just little stupid issues, even breakups. And you can't, you know, come together next week and be on some like, okay, let's get closure. Let me ask all the questions. You need time to pass. Like you need to self-reflect enough to know what bothered you about the situation and understand like, why was I that hurt? Like for the person who was done wrong, you have to ask yourself, why was I hurt? Why did getting hurt by this person bother me so much? Did it bother me because of how they treated me before? Did it bother me because it reminded me of how someone else treated me? Why does this hurt me? And for, you know, the wrongdoer, it's you have to think and sit with, why did I do that? Why did I mess up? Did I feel like that person deserved it? Was I doing this with malicious intent? You know, like both people have to reflect on their own in their own time when they're ready, because people like everything takes time. Everyone has their own like process. And I feel like to get closure, both people, whether it be years from the moment or months or never, whatever, I don't know, they need to sit with themselves and think all that through and just kind of have the constant conversation rolling in your head to make sure you are steady in those thoughts. Like you can't get closure from anyone or anything if you're still in that iffy moment where you're like, you know what, but they could have thought this, or I could have thought this, or whatever. Or it's just, you can't have all those what ifs in your head. You have to be very sure in how you feel. And I feel like two people who have done that and can get through a conversation without emotions, without crying, and really just saying like, this is how you made me feel. And I know this because I've thought about this for a while and this is my take on it. You can tell me yours. I'm going to hear you out. But I don't have to completely understand your side and you don't have to completely understand mine. But for as long as I've heard it from your end, and this is how you feel and this is how you're very sure, like this is how sure you are of knowing how you feel, and you've heard my side, that's all it needs to be said. To me, that's closure. Like, closure is knowing the more mature version of this person after everything happened. Because I think another version of closure or like form of closure is knowing that all this time has passed and that person's still a shitty person. And that's who they're going to be and that's who they are. And I'm glad that I spent this much time away from them. I feel good about myself and I feel good about the situation. I feel good that I left. And on the other side, the wrongdoer can say their side and the person who was done wrong can be like, you know what? I'm glad that this person, after all this time, understood my point of view and I can stop going through the circles in my head of like, will they ever understand what they did to me or whatever? And I'm glad that they're a better person now, but it's unfortunate that they had to do this to me in order to understand that and just accept that and just be happy with knowing like, you know what? You're a better person in this world. I'm strong enough to have dealt with whatever had happened. And that's it. That's closure too. Like, that's what closure needs to be. It's just the acceptance of a situation and almost like debriefing on everything long after everything happened. Because I think you talk about friendships, talk about relationships. I think that seeing who a person is long after you guys have parted ways shows you who they are. Because I feel like when you spend every day with someone or when you spend a whole lot of time with someone, you're impacting them a lot and you're seeing the version of them that they are when they're around you. But when someone makes other friends or someone has a new girlfriend or someone goes through a whole bunch of things after you that you've never known and you see them and you meet up again and you see who they are without your influence and just not to say that you impacted them completely and entirely, but if you were that strong of an, influence in that person's life, you get to see who they are when you don't know them. And you just can see who they turned out to be. And I think for me, and I could be completely wrong for other people, but I feel like closure is finding out the true parts of that person's character and understanding, like, after speaking, after years or months or whatever, is this person a good person or is this person a bad person? And how okay am I with this person no longer being in my life? And it doesn't mean to bring them back. It doesn't. It never means that. But it just means like that's another thing for you to assess. But it's not going to give you the circles in your head of the what ifs because you already heard everything. Everything that needed to be said should be said in that very last conversation. And there's no more what ifs. And I think that that's really healthy and that's really great. Like, one thing I can say is that everyone, I feel like I've gotten closure, whether it be, because, okay, you know what, let's get into this. I've gotten closure in that way from people who I didn't have that last conversation with. Because some of them, you don't even need the last conversation. I think that their actions show enough of who they are. And clearly with the tone that my voice is going, it's someone who I'm kind of glad that they're not in my life anymore. Well, not kind of, very, because they're just not good people. They're just not. And I see that through their actions. I see that through what they say about me when I'm not around. I see that through a whole lot of things. And so, closure you don't need to have that conversation either to have the closure. For healthy individuals, yes, have the conversation, but you don't need it. And back to what I was starting that thought with, I feel like I have gotten closure from every open-ended situation I have ever had. And I think that's part of where all the peace and joy and happiness and all that stuff comes from, because I don't have the anxiety of what if this person comes back? What is this person thinking of me? Or ever like, why, like, is this person out to get me? Who's out to get me? Is there anybody I've ever done wrong? Like, I don't have any of those feelings ever, because I have made peace with myself. I've made peace with people that I've wronged. And I think that that's just, wow, I just went through something. That felt great. Like, I'm so happy with where I stand with everyone in my life or everyone who's ever been in it or anyone I've ever crossed paths with. Like, it's crazy because I've had so many crazy situations. I've been blocked by so many people. So many. You'd be surprised. I've been blocked by a lot of people. I've gotten my email blocked by a few people. A number blocked temporarily a few times. Like, people have had really strong feelings towards me, really strong negative ones. And I feel like for nearly all of them, besides one, I was able to, maybe two. Um, I was able to have like a really peaceful ending that I'm happy with. Because all that matters is that I'm happy with it. Honestly, it's my life. I'm chill. So yeah. Wow. No, it is just one person. I got the closure from the other one. Sorry. I just had to go through that in my brain because I thought about that for a little bit. But yeah, I think going through everything I went through in my high school years, because high school sucked for me because of the whole situation. I even spoke about it in my freaking salutatorian speech, and everyone went, "Oh, she talked about that." Like, yeah, because of everything that went down, I am such a great person. I think it's part of why I'm so happy with who I am, because to know that I was a terrible friend and that I could be that envious of someone else, or just like rude without reason, mean without reason, just like I wouldn't be friends with the old me, but I would love being friends with me now. And I think that says a lot, because I always think like I said, people, you got to reflect. And I just think like, if you don't if you wouldn't be friends with yourself, if you wouldn't want to spend, a whole lot of time with yourself, even like, or even if you think of yourself and you're like, would I want a partner who's like me? If the answer is no, you got some stuff to fix. And honestly, I think because I know how dark my heart can get and stuff, or has gotten, because it can't get there anymore. I'm full of love and light. Uh, because I know like how bad it's been, or how, like I said, how bad I've gotten. I'm so grateful for who I am right now. Who I am right now is someone who has just like, I'm just shining. I really am. And, if that's the case for you, pat yourself on the back, give yourself a little smooch on the lips. Like, it's tough. It's tough being a young adult. And, even for me to tell like, the thing is, like I said, I can really easily say I was a terrible human being. Easy. Without a doubt. But the fact that I can say that, or even speak about this literally anywhere to anyone on camera, I don't care, whatever, without tearing up or crying and stuff, that's big stuff, because this was a situation I couldn't talk about for about 3 years without tearing up or feeling the guilt again, or having the urge to text the person I did wrong, or any of that. Like, I'm so proud of myself. And, I feel like a lot of these solo episodes are going to keep going this way, where it's like I go through a whole thing of self-reflection. And I'm like, I love me. I love me so much. But that's what happens when you work on yourself as much as I have. Like, this isn't me gloating. This is just who I am. I'm someone who thoroughly enjoys the person I've become, and I can sit and live alone with myself and sit with my thoughts and even laugh like a psycho. But, some people sit with their thoughts and they're bawling crying. So I'm doing better than them. Like, you just gotta, I don't want to say in the end all you have is yourself, because that's a lie. I mean, and if it's true for you, I'm sorry. But people love you. More people love you than you think. And I think it's important to think about those people when you're feeling down and out, because those are the people who are going to tell you how great you are. So if they haven't told you, you're great. Even if you suck sometimes. We all suck sometimes. But that sounded terrible. You know what I mean? But I don't know. Growing and loving and living is so important. So, so important. So integral to being a human. And I think that that's beautiful. But yeah. So one thing I just want to reiterate is, like, as like standoffish as I got with the whole apology side, where I'm like, some people say sorry and they don't mean it and all that stuff. If you've done someone wrong, if you're in that weird phase where you don't know if you should talk to said person because you don't know how they're going to receive it, but if you're genuinely sorry, let this be your sign to just tell them you're sorry. Just let it be that. If we don't have time to waste, and if you have been going through it in your head and you're wondering like, like, I don't even know how to put it. like not even wondering, if you're just sitting there and you're just like, you know what? This person deserves an apology. It's been X amount of time. Doesn't matter if it's been days, months, years, and you feel like you have the courage, because it takes balls to say you're sorry. I'm a very prideful person. I'm someone who's never wrong. I'm someone who I'm just like, nope. Everything I do is right. Everything you do is wrong. If I did you dirty, it's probably because you deserved it. That's not me now. I'm just saying that's very much who I was. So I'm not gonna lie. It takes some courage to say you're sorry and to apologize. But if you really feel like you're truly sorry and you check off all the boxes of what I said earlier, where you feel like you've reflected enough and that you understand the damage that you've caused, and you think that it's an okay time to come back without influencing that person's heart too much, say you're sorry. Go ahead, say you're sorry. There is so much, I forgot to talk about this part. There's so much weight in an apology, because even me, the few times I've received heartfelt apologies, it lifted a weight off of me that I didn't know I had. Like when someone you don't expect to, to apologizes, whether it's the most stubborn person in your life, the biggest, if it's like one of the biggest heartbreaks you've ever had, if it's like the most painful thing you've ever experienced from anyone, or it's someone that you just really would never expect to say that they're sorry. If that person does, that does something to you. Or even then, I've had situations where I'm like, I'll never forgive that person for what they said. Or that thing messed with my head so much that I don't think I could ever forgive them, because how could I if all I hear are those words every time this situation rolls around or whatever. Like, I've had so many of those situations. And all it takes is just one I'm sorry, one truthful, honest, sincere apology. And you would be so surprised how much that does for you. Truly. So if you're the fucked up friend or terrible boyfriend or bad girlfriend, whatever, and you did something, you're in the middle of a fight, you're about to go to sleep angry, let this be your sign to just say you're sorry. Mean it. Don't let it be just, I'm sorry. Give them a paragraph, give them a voice note, give them a phone call, whatever your little heart desires, as long as it's not just, I'm sorry. And see where it takes you. You'd be surprised. You'd be so surprised. And even looking back, now I wonder what my apologies did for people. Because like I said, no one expects me to say I'm sorry, like, ever. See? Look at all this reflecting. All this reflecting. With the I'm sorries too, I'm here saying, like, don't forget to say I'm sorry, but also don't forget to say I love you. I'm going to keep spreading this little message around all the time. Say I love you to everyone you love all the time. Don't forget to say it. It means a lot. When people constantly hear that they're loved, they start to love themselves a little more. And I think that's beautiful. There are so many people who that I tell them I love them, and I could just see their hearts get a little warmer and their faces get brighter and their lives get better. Not saying it's because of me. I'm just saying that when you're very used to love and warmth around you and affection, it does something to you. So tell people you love that you love them. Apologize to the people that you've hurt. Have vulnerable conversations with people about things that, well, if you're vulnerable, it's because you're uncomfortable and stuff. Have those conversations because they're worth having. Life is too short. And we could all be gone tomorrow. Wow. I have no one to say I'm sorry to. I have no one to apologize to. I've apologized to everyone who deserved an apology. Because I've been thinking throughout this whole podcast, like, is there anybody I forgot? Is there anybody who's missing? I don't think there is. Well, I think that's all today. Be a better person. Be a loving person. Live like you're dying. And practice apologizing. Even if it's in the mirror. Start there. And that's all. Thank you for listening to a little abrupt, but thank you for listening to this podcast. Like, comment, and subscribe, or do whatever your subscription service tells you to do. I would greatly, greatly appreciate it. I need the views. I need the plays. I need the retention. Do that stuff. And yeah, that is all for today. Thank you for watching. See you next week. Bye.